Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here on the Zenobia channel with Volko Ruhnke, who needs no introduction, but he's a fantastic game designer. You might know him from things like the Coin and Living Campaign series. How you doing, Volko?
I'm doing great. Hi, Liz.
So it's great to have you on. We're going to talk about a particular section of our concept proposal, which, if you're competing in Zenobia, you're going to be writing right now, and that is the core mechanisms section. So, Volko, do you want to kind of give the rundown of what is in that section and what we might be looking for?
Sure. So, what that section of the concept proposal asks you is to start to actually describe what is the form and functionality of your game. How will it work? And it may be the most challenging part of the concept proposal because it's really the most unique thing that we do as game designers. And that is after we've researched the history and had an idea of how a historical system works, how do we translate that into a game that takes place in your tabletop? So that's core mechanisms. And for that, the judges are going to be looking for three specific aspects that they're going to score points on. And they are, the first one's clarity and specificity. The second one is fidelity of the model. And the third one is feasibility. So I want to talk about each of those. So core mechanisms, clarity. To what degree are the game's mechanisms, victory conditions, and system dynamics described clearly and completely? So this is the challenge of, if you have an idea of how the game will work, putting that into words and communicating that in prose. Because we can't try your game yet. We want to read about how it will work mechanically. And I think the key thing to think about there is, if you think of it as a machine or an apparatus, tell us how it works. How does the machine work? You know, if it's an engine, describe the pistons and the carburetor and the fuel flow or whatever. You know, how does it work? The more that you can convey to us your game mechanical ideas, the higher you'll score for clarity. The second one is fidelity of model. And this one I think is particularly important for a historical board game. We're not looking here in Zenobia for quiz games about history, you know, where it's just, you know, there's content about history in it, but it's really some frame to simply play a game about facts and dates and the like. We really are looking for a dynamic model that your game is representing actual historical dynamics that you've identified earlier in the concept proposal in your historical background section. So fidelity means we are going to be looking at how much do the mechanics that you describe really suggest they will bring to life on the table the historical system that you have described for us. And what that means is that there are 7 elements that you're going to be consciously or unconsciously putting into that model that are going to account for that historical system. And those elements are scale, scope, actors and factors, ends, ways, and means. And I'm not going to say more about that. We'll link you to a video if you're curious about those elements. But these are elements, in my view, that are in all historical designs. So you can kind of think about, how does your game scale reflect? Is it appropriate to the particular system you're describing? Are the actors, the players, the right key actors in your historical situation? Are the ends that they're following what the historical players actually were pursuing? That's going to be your victory conditions. All of those elements in your model is going to help the judges see whether or not it seems like your game will actually bring to life the historical background that you described.
Yeah, and
Finally, go ahead.
yeah, and just to step in before we get to feasibility, you know, lest this sound intimidating, I just want to remind everybody out there: one, you don't have to have a perfectly formed game yet. We are aware that you need to build it, play test it, prototype it, iterate it. But what we are looking for is that you have a plan, some sort of plan that you can actually articulate to us so that we can assess what it is that you're trying to do. So does it have to be perfect? No. But when we want clarity, what we do want is a sense of your vision. And when it comes to fidelity, I will be linking one of Volko's previous talks in the show notes if you want to see more. But the way I see this is almost more like a paper, like a term paper in the sense that you are trying to figure out what is it that I want to capture historically, and then how mechanically am I going to achieve that. And so for me, fidelity to historical background, a model that I made would probably have all the things that Volko mentions in it. But I think about it more as like, okay, what is the kernel of tension that I'm looking for? And then how will the mechanisms that I build in help the player experience that? How will my game express that? So if
That
that's, you need another way to think about it. That's how it is in my head.
I think that's very well described.
But the other thing is you have limited time, everyone, and that leads us to feasibility.
Feasibility. So for feasibility, what the judges are going to be considering is to what degree can your project be executed within the time allowed by the contest or within the mechanical framework proposed. And so here we have three different elements of feasibility. One is design. Is your design practical and limited enough that we really think you, and with help from mentors and other partners, you really could design it in the time of the contest? It's going to take less than a year to design this game. It's not so detailed and huge and formidable a design when we look at the core mechanisms that you're just not going to be able to get it to playable prototype in time. That's design. Then there's also production. We would like to help get you to an actual marketable product, something that a game publisher could print and sell. And that also means there are component limits. There are space limits on a person's table. Physically and with production issues in mind, do the mechanics that you described, could that be executed in a reasonably priced product? And then finally, there's the players themselves. It's possible that you could design and produce a game, but it's either so detailed or the mechanics will take so long to execute that you couldn't sit down and play it in a reasonable time. And since play testing to develop and finally judge your designs is going to have only a limited amount of time to do that, we really are going to need versions of your design ultimately that are playable in, say, 2 hours or less. So those are all issues of feasibility that judges might consider as they read about your core mechanisms in the concept proposal.
Sounds good. So just to wrap it up, everybody, we are looking for three things when it comes to those core mechanisms. One is clarity. Tell us in as clear language as possible what you're planning. We want to see your vision and we want to help you make it happen. Fidelity to historical background. Make sure that you're really communicating to us how the mechanisms you've chosen fit with the historical background and with the historical concepts you're trying to express. And then feasibility. This is for your sanity and ours. Can it really be done? Make sure that you are biting off just the right amount of game to chew over the course of about a year of Zenobia.
That's it. Simple.
It's easy. You're all done. Go and get it done. Thank you so much, Volko, for coming on, and of course, everybody out there, please, ask questions. We're here for you, and happy designing.
Good luck, everyone.